When I retired, all I knew was defending my end zone.
I didn't know what to do. I always had my guard up.
Ready to tear someone's head off.
Then I stopped settling for safe-ish and got safe with ADT.
With 24/7 monitoring,
What's up, Brian?
I'm more relaxed than ever.
And I don't have my head on the swivel anymore. Oh, a black cat chickadee.
I had a whole defensive scheme to keep it safe-ish. Woo!
And safe-ish wasn't good enough. Oh, hey.
Hey, Bam Bam!
What's going on?
Because now when it comes to protecting my house, I use ADT. Coming through! No, not in my house!
Oh, a cat.
I used to fix servers, not marriages. Turns out, both involve a lot of crashes when you least expect them. My name is Kian Marin, and I'm 42 years old with the kind of job that makes people's eyes glaze over at parties. IT specialist for a mid-sized insurance company in Minneapolis. I troubleshoot network problems, install security systems, and occasionally explain to executives why they can't just download more internet when things run slow. The irony isn't lost on me that I spent 15 years securing other people's data while my own wife was planning the biggest breach of trust imaginable. It was a Thursday in October, rain hammering our smart home windows like nature's own percussion section. Leora was in the kitchen, coffee mug in one hand, phone in the other, looking like she was preparing for battle. At 39, she still had that marketing executive polish that first caught my attention at a conference 12 years ago. Sharp suits, sharper tongue, and the kind of confidence that could sell ice to penguins. I'm telling you, Tara, this weekend is exactly what I need, she was saying into her phone. Just us girls, spa treatments, no men allowed. She caught me listening and gave me that practiced smile, the one she used on difficult clients. Just finalizing plans with the girls, she said, covering the phone. Now, you know how Tara gets when we don't nail down every detail. I nodded and returned to my laptop. Tara Voss had been Leora's best friend since college, and she had the organizational skills of a military campaign planner. If Tara was involved, every minute would be scheduled, every restaurant reservation confirmed twice. Promise me, no men, Leora continued into the phone, then laughed. Cross my heart. Something in that laugh made me look up. It had an edge to it, like when she was closing a particularly tricky deal. But I pushed the thought away. Paranoia wasn't attractive in a husband, and our marriage had enough problems without me inventing new ones. After she left for work, I sat in our living room, surrounded by the smart home technology I'd installed over the years. Motion sensors, security cameras, automated locks, all connected to my phone and laptop. The house responded to voice commands, learned our routines, and could probably run itself if we disappeared tomorrow. The rain kept falling, and something kept nagging at me about that phone call. I'm not proud of what I did next, but 15 years in, IT teaches you that the most innocent-looking files often hide the biggest problems. Leora had left her tablet on the kitchen counter, still logged into her email. One quick glance wouldn't hurt. The hotel confirmation was right there in her inbox, received 3 hours ago. Thank you for booking our honeymoon suite package for October 15th to 17th. We look forward to welcoming you and your partner to our romantic weekend getaway. Partner. Not the girls. Not Tara. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. The Grandview Hotel, 2 hours north, champagne service, couples massage, late checkout. Everything designed for two people very much in love. My hands shook as I screenshot the email. Then I found the credit card statement, charged to our joint account naturally. She was using my money to cheat on me. The rational part of my brain tried to find innocent explanations. Maybe she'd booked the wrong room type. Maybe it was a surprise for our anniversary next month. Maybe pigs were learning to fly in the backyard. But deep down, I knew. The same instinct that helped me spot corrupted data was screaming that my marriage had a massive virus, and it was spreading fast. I called my office and told them I was taking a personal day. Then I sat in my chair, rain drumming overhead, and started planning. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe. Drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. By the time Leora came home that evening, I had made some calls. My brother-in-law, Paul, who worked in security, had recommended an excellent locksmith. The appointment was scheduled for tomorrow morning, right after Leora left for her girls' weekend. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my cheek with the same enthusiasm she'd show a distant relative. "Productive," I said. "Fixed a lot of problems that needed fixing." She was already scrolling through her phone, probably coordinating with her mystery partner. I watched her, memorizing details. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was excited. How her eyes lit up when certain messages came through. All the tells I'd been too trusting to notice before. "I should pack," she said, heading upstairs. "Early start tomorrow." "Have fun," I called after her. "I hope you get everything you're looking for." She paused on the stairs, maybe catching something in my tone, but then continued up. I heard her moving around in our bedroom, probably selecting lingerie I hadn't seen in months. That night, I lay awake listening to her breathe beside me. She seemed to sleep peacefully, no guilt disturbing her dreams. I envied her that peace, because I knew it was about to end. The next morning, she was gone by 8, wheeling her suitcase out to her car with the excitement of a teenager heading to prom. She'd dressed carefully, the black dress that hugged her curves, the expensive perfume I'd bought her last Christmas. "See you Sunday night," she called, blowing me a kiss. "Safe travels," I replied, already reaching for my phone. The locksmith arrived at 10 sharp. Professional, efficient, and completely uninterested in why I needed to change every lock in the house on a Friday morning. By noon, Leora's keys were as useful as chocolate teapots. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I spent the afternoon reviewing our smart home system, making some adjustments to the security settings. Then I composed a text message, attached the screenshot of her hotel confirmation, and added a photo I'd taken of myself having lunch with her sister Sylvie. "I think it's pretty clear," I said, settling into my chair with a beer. "Enjoy your romantic getaway. Don't worry about me, I'll find ways to entertain myself." "You're being ridiculous. It's just a girls' weekend. The hotel made a mistake with the room type." "Right, and I'm sure your partner for the couples massage will be Tara." Silence then. "I'm coming home right now." "Your choice. But your key won't work, and I'm not feeling particularly hospitable tonight." I hung up and activated the security system. Every camera was recording, every sensor was active. If she wanted to play games, I was about to show her what happened when you challenged someone who understood technology better than she understood loyalty. The storm outside was getting worse, but inside my house, I felt calmer than I had in months. For the first time in our marriage, I held all the cards, and I was just getting started. She arrived at 9:47 p.m., her headlights cutting through the rain as she pulled into our driveway with the urgency of someone whose world was crashing down. I watched through the security camera as she sat in her car for a moment, probably trying to figure out her next move. Then Tara's car pulled up behind her. "Interesting," I muttered, settling back with another beer. The cavalry arrives. Tara Voss stepped out into the rain, laptop bag slung over her shoulder like she was heading into battle. At 38, she had the kind of aggressive competence that made her successful in tech consulting and, apparently, adultery assistance. They huddled under the porch light, and I could see Leora gesturing frantically while Tara examined the smart lock with professional interest. Through the security system's audio pickup, I caught fragments of their conversation. "Changed all the locks. Can hack this, right? Basic residential system." I nearly laughed out loud. Tara was good at her job, but she specialized in corporate network security. Smart home systems were a different animal entirely, especially when they'd been customized by someone who actually understood the hardware. I activated my phone's intercom feature and spoke through the front door speaker. "Evening, ladies. Lovely night for a romantic getaway, isn't it?" They both jumped. Leora stepped closer to the door. "Kian, open this door right now. We need to talk. I'm comfortable talking like this. Besides, I wouldn't want to interrupt Tara's hacking attempt." Tara had her laptop open, cables snaking toward the lock mechanism. Her fingers flew over the keyboard with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. I wondered how many other marriages she'd helped sabotage. I let her work for about 10 minutes, watching through multiple camera angles as she tried various approaches. She attempted to access the lock's wireless signal, then tried to override the power supply, then resorted to what looked like a basic port scan. None of it worked because I'd anticipated exactly this scenario. Having trouble? I asked through the speaker. Just give me a few more minutes, Tara called back, frustration creeping into her voice. Take your time. I'm enjoying the show. What they didn't know is that the lock wasn't just smart. It was vindictive. Every failed hacking attempt triggered a new response from my security system. First, it logged their efforts and sent alerts to my phone. Then it started getting creative. After Tara's 15th failed attempt, the sprinkler system activated. What the? Tara yelped as water soaked her laptop. Oops, I said through the speaker. Motion sensor malfunction. These smart systems can be so unpredictable. Leora was screaming now, a mixture of rage and panic that would have worried me if I still cared about her emotional state. But watching her mascara run in the artificial rain, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Satisfaction. You're insane, she shouted at the camera. This is harassment. This is my house, I replied calmly. You're welcome to leave anytime. Tara managed to get her laptop under the porch overhang, frantically trying to dry the keyboard. She was muttering technical curses that would have impressed my colleagues. The system's fighting back, she told Leora. Every time I try to access it, it triggers some new defensive response. So override it. I'm trying. But whoever set this up knew what they were doing. I decided to help them along. A few keystrokes on my phone activated the next phase of my security theater. The front door's LED display lit up with a message. Unauthorized access detected. Police have been notified. Both women froze. He's bluffing, Tara said, but she didn't sound convinced. Are you sure? Leora asked. I wasn't bluffing about the police notification. The system had automatically logged their hacking attempt and sent a report to the security company. But I was betting they'd panic before checking whether officers were actually dispatched. They panicked. We need to go, Tara said, shoving her damp laptop into its bag. If the cops show up and find me with hacking equipment, we can't just leave. We can figure this out tomorrow, when we're not standing in the rain, committing what might technically be breaking and entering. They retreated to Tara's car, and I thought that was the end of round one. But as they sat there with the engine running, probably planning their next move, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Leora was pointing toward the side of the house, toward the planter where we'd hidden a spare key for emergencies. I'd forgotten about the spare key. No, I muttered, switching camera views to track their movement. Sure enough, Leora was creeping around the side of the house, while Tara kept watch. She knew exactly where to look, because we'd hidden that key together 3 years ago after I'd locked myself out during a server emergency. The key was still there, tucked under the fake rock that fooled absolutely no one but had seemed clever. I watched helplessly as she crept back to the front door. The smart lock was sophisticated, but it couldn't tell the difference between an authorized key and an unauthorized one. Metal was metal. The lock clicked open. Got it, Leora called to Tara, and both women hurried inside. I was upstairs in my office, but I could hear them moving through the house. The security cameras showed them dripping on my hardwood floors. Leora leading Tara toward the kitchen. Time for the face-to-face confrontation I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. I walked downstairs slowly, letting my footsteps announce my approach. They were standing in the kitchen, Leora trying to towel off with paper towels, while Tara examined her water-damaged laptop. Well, I said, leaning against the doorframe, this is cozy. Leora spun around, and for a moment I saw something in her face that might have been shame. But it passed quickly, replaced by the aggressive defensiveness I'd seen her use on difficult clients. We need to talk, she said. I'm listening. Alone, she added, glancing at Tara. Oh no, I said. Tara's part of this now. She helped plan your romantic weekend, didn't she? She deserves to hear how it ends. Tara shifted uncomfortably. Maybe I should wait in the car. Stay, I said firmly. I want a witness for this conversation. I pulled out my phone and activated the recording app, making sure they could see what I was doing. For posterity. You can't record me without my consent. Actually, I can. This is my house and you're trespassing. I have every right to document what happens next. The confidence drained from her face. She was used to being the one in control, the one with leverage. But standing in my kitchen, soaking wet and caught red-handed. She looked smaller somehow. "The hotel thing isn't what you think," she started. "Really? Then explain it to me. It's complicated." "I've got time." She glanced at Tara, who was trying very hard to blend into the background. "There's someone else. But it's not serious. It's just, I needed to feel wanted again." The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd known they were coming. Hearing her admit it out loud was different from suspecting it. "How long?" I asked. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me. 6 months, maybe 7. 7 months. While I'd been working late to pay for her lifestyle, she'd been planning her escape route. "Who is he?" "Someone from work. You don't know him? Try me. Evan Dorsey. He's in marketing." I didn't know the name, but I filed it away for later research. "And Tara knew about this?" Tara finally spoke up. I tried to talk her out of it. "Did you? Or did you help her book hotel rooms and cover for her lies?" Silence. "I see." I turned back to Leora. "So, what's the plan now? You've been caught. Your boyfriend is probably wondering where you are. And you're standing in my house, dripping on my floor, trying to figure out how to spin this." "I want a divorce," she said suddenly. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. "Good," I said. "We agree on something." She blinked, clearly expecting more of a fight. "Good? Did you think I'd beg you to stay after this?" I gestured around the kitchen. "After you used my money to cheat on me? It's not about the money. Everything's about money, Leora. You taught me that." I could see her mind racing, trying to find an angle that would give her some advantage. "I want half of everything. You'll get what you're entitled to. Nothing more, nothing less. And I want the house." I laughed, actually laughed. "The house? The one you just broke into? The one where you've been planning your affair for 7 months? It's my home, too. Not anymore. You made your choice when you booked that hotel room." She stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of the expensive perfume she'd put on for another man. "You think you're so smart, with your cameras and your locks and your little games. But you have no idea what you're dealing with. Enlighten me. I know things about you, Kian. Things that wouldn't look good in a divorce proceeding." It was a bluff. It had to be. My life was an open book. I worked, I paid bills, I came home. The most scandalous thing in my browser history was probably some questionable Netflix choices. But the threat told me everything I needed to know about who I'd been married to for 12 years. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of my house. Take your friend, take your lies, and get out. You can't just—" "I can. This is my house. You're trespassing. And if you're not gone in 60 seconds, I'm calling the police for real this time." Tara was already heading for the door, her damaged laptop clutched against her chest. Leora hesitated, maybe trying to think of one more threat or manipulation. The rain was still falling, washing away the evidence of their failed invasion. I locked the door, the regular way this time, and went back upstairs to my office. I had research to do, phone calls to make, plans to refine. Leora thought she knew what she was dealing with, but she was wrong. She'd spent 7 months planning her betrayal. I was about to spend the next 7 days planning her destruction. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn clarity that makes everything seem possible. I'd spent the weekend doing research, making phone calls, and preparing what I privately called Operation Transparency. Leora had texted me twice, both messages variations on the theme of, "We need to talk like adults." I hadn't responded. Adults don't sneak around booking honeymoon suites with their coworkers. My first stop was Leora's office building downtown. Meridian Marketing occupied 3 floors of a glass tower that reflected the morning sun like a beacon of corporate ambition. I'd been there exactly twice in 12 years of marriage, once for a Christmas party, once to pick up Leora when her car was being serviced. The lobby was all marble and chrome, designed to intimidate clients and impress visitors. The security guard recognized me from my previous visits. "Morning, Mr. Marin. Here to see your wife?" "Actually, I'm here to see Miss Vickers." "I have an appointment." Margaret Vickers was Leora's boss, a sharp-edged woman in her mid-40s, who'd built her reputation on aggressive client acquisition and zero tolerance for office drama. Leora worshipped her with the devotion of someone who saw her own future in another person's success. Getting the appointment had been surprisingly easy. I'd called Friday afternoon, introduced myself as Leora's husband, and mentioned that I had some concerns about potential conflicts of interest that might affect the company. Ms. Vickers had agreed to see me Monday at 9. I took the elevator to the 15th floor, where Meridian's reception area showcased awards, client testimonials, and photos of the leadership team. Leora's photo was prominently displayed. She was a senior account manager, one step below director level. Mr. Marin, Miss Vickers will see you now. Margaret Vickers' office was a monument to professional achievement. Diplomas, awards, and photos with various business leaders covered one wall. Her desk was positioned to take advantage of the panoramic city view, a power play that probably intimidated most visitors. Mr. Marin, thank you for coming in. You mentioned some concerns about conflicts of interest. I settled into the chair across from her desk and pulled out my tablet. I appreciate you taking the time, Ms. Vickers. What I'm about to share with you is difficult for me personally, but I believe it could have serious implications for Meridian. Her expression sharpened. In the corporate world, serious implications was code for potential lawsuits, regulatory problems, or public relations disasters. I discovered this weekend that my wife has been having an affair with a coworker, Evan Dorsey. Ms. Vickers' face went carefully neutral. I see. That's unfortunate for you personally, but I'm not sure how it affects the company. They've been using company resources to coordinate their relationship. Email accounts, business trips, client entertainment budgets. I turned my tablet toward her, showing the hotel confirmation. This weekend's romantic getaway was charged to a company credit card. That got her attention. She leaned forward to examine the screen. How did you obtain this information? My wife left her tablet at home. I found the email confirmation and did some additional research. I swiped to the next screen, showing credit card statements I'd printed from our joint account. The hotel charges, restaurant bills, even what appear to be gifts, all on the company card. Ms. Vickers was taking notes now, her pen moving quickly across a legal pad. Do you have documentation of their use of company email for personal communications? I did, thanks to Leora's habit of checking work email on her home tablet. The IT part of my brain had automatically backed up her email cache to our home server months ago, a routine security measure that had turned into a goldmine of evidence. Several months' worth, I confirmed, showing her screenshots of messages that were definitely not about marketing campaigns. She studied the evidence for several minutes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. I answered everything honestly, sticking to facts and avoiding emotional commentary. This was a business meeting, not a therapy session. Mr. Marin, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. We take misuse of company resources very seriously. I'll need to conduct an internal investigation, of course. Of course. I just thought you should know before it becomes a bigger problem. Has anyone else seen this information? Not yet. But divorce proceedings can get complicated, and I wanted to make sure Meridian had the opportunity to address any potential issues proactively. She understood the implication. If this became public during a messy divorce, it could reflect poorly on the company's management and oversight. I'll handle this appropriately, she said, standing to signal the end of our meeting. Thank you for your discretion in bringing this directly to me. I shook her hand and left, confident that Leora's Monday was about to become very interesting. My next stop was the family group chat that Leora had created to keep everyone updated on major life events. The participants included Leora's parents, her sister Sylvie, my brother Paul, and a few close family friends. It was usually reserved for birthday announcements and holiday planning. Today, it was getting a different kind of update. I composed the message carefully. Hi, everyone. I wanted to let you know that Leora and I are getting divorced. She's been having an affair with a coworker and has been dishonest about her activities for several months. I've attached some documentation for those who might want to understand the situation better. I hope we can all handle this maturely and focus on moving forward. Then I attached the hotel confirmation, selected email screenshots, and credit card statements showing the pattern of deception. I hit send and immediately turned off my phone's notification sounds. The responses would come fast and furious, but I didn't need to read them right away. Instead, I drove to my office and tried to focus on actual work. I had servers to maintain, security patches to install, and help desk tickets to resolve. Normal problems with logical solutions. A refreshing change, from the chaos of my personal life. But concentration was impossible. Every few minutes, I checked my phone to see the growing list of notifications. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails. The family group chat was exploding with activity. Sylvie's message was the first one I read. "Oh my God, Kian, I'm so sorry. I tried to warn you months ago, but you seemed happy. Are you okay?" Leora's mother had written, "This is a private family matter that should be discussed privately, not aired in a group chat." Paul's response was more direct. "Holy crap, bro. I knew something was off when she started working late all the time. Need anything?" But the most interesting response came from someone I hadn't expected to hear from, Evan Dorsey himself. Apparently, Leora had given him my phone number at some point, probably during one of their planning sessions. His text message arrived around noon. "We need to talk. This doesn't have to get ugly." I stared at the message for a long time, considering my options. Then I typed back, "You're right, it doesn't have to get ugly. It's going to get ugly." My phone rang immediately. "Mr. Marin, this is Evan Dorsey. I think there's been a misunderstanding." His voice was smooth, confident, the kind of tone that probably worked well in sales presentations and client meetings. But I could hear the underlying nervousness. What kind of misunderstanding? About me and Leora. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because what I think is that you've been having an affair with my wife for 7 months, using company resources to fund your romantic adventures. Am I wrong?" Silence. "I didn't know she was going to charge the hotel to the company card," he finally said. "But you knew she was married." "Yes. And you knew she was lying to me about where she was going this weekend. It's complicated." "It's really not. You helped my wife cheat on me. You used company money to do it, and now you're worried about the consequences. Look, I don't want any trouble. Maybe we can work something out." "What kind of something?" I could end things with Leora. We could keep this quiet. No need for lawyers or HR investigations or any of that mess." I almost laughed. He was trying to negotiate his way out of a situation that was already beyond his control. "Evan, let me explain something to you. This morning, I met with your boss and showed her evidence of your misuse of company resources. This afternoon, my wife is probably getting called into HR. And tomorrow, I'm filing for divorce and providing all this documentation to my lawyer." "You can't do that." "I already did the first part. The rest is just paperwork." He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, the confidence was gone. "What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to find a new job. And I want you to think very carefully about the choices you make in the future. And if I do that, then maybe the documentation I provided to Ms. Vickers will be sufficient, and I won't need to share it with anyone else. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a chance to minimize the damage you've done to yourself. Take it or don't. But this conversation is over." I hung up and immediately blocked his number. Whatever happened next, I didn't want to hear his excuses or attempts at negotiation. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of routine tasks and constant phone notifications. The family group chat had generated over 50 messages, ranging from supportive to shocked to accusatory. Several people had tried calling me directly, but the most important call came at 4:30 p.m. "Kian, it's Sylvie. Are you somewhere you can talk?" Sylvie was Leora's younger sister, but they'd been estranged for the past 2 years, over some family drama I'd never fully understood. She was the one person in Leora's family who'd always been straight with me. "I'm at work, but I can talk. I just got off the phone with Leora. She's not handling this well." "How not well?" "She got suspended from work pending an investigation. HR called her in around noon and presented her with evidence of policy violations. She's convinced you're trying to destroy her life." "I'm trying to end my marriage to someone who's been lying to me for months." "I know, and I'm glad you finally found out. I tried to tell you at Christmas, but you seemed so happy, and I didn't have proof." "You knew?" "I suspected." She was different when she talked about work, excited in a way that didn't seem professional, and she kept mentioning this Evan guy in casual conversation. I felt a pang of regret. If I'd been paying attention, if I'd listened to Sylvie's hints, maybe I could have avoided months of being made a fool. "Anyway," Sylvie continued, "I wanted you to know that she's planning to fight back. She's talking about hiring a lawyer, claiming you invaded her privacy maybe even filing harassment charges. Let her try. Everything I did was legal. I know. But she's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. Just be careful, okay? After we hung up, I sat in my office chair and stared out the window at the city skyline. The sun was setting, painting the buildings in shades of orange and gold. It should have been beautiful, but all I could think about was what came next. Lyora was suspended from the job she loved, facing an investigation that could end her career. Her family knew about the affair, her reputation was in ruins, and her marriage was over. A better man might have felt sorry for her. But I wasn't feeling particularly charitable. She'd made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. The only question was, what would she do next? Tuesday evening found me sitting in my car outside Pinnacle Fitness, watching Evan Dorsey's silver BMW in the parking lot. According to his social media profiles, which he'd foolishly left public, he maintained a strict workout schedule: cardio at 6 p.m., weights until 7:30, protein shake at the juice bar until 8. Creatures of habit make the best targets. Paul had come through with the intel I needed. His security company had done some work for Pinnacle Fitness, and he still had contacts there. Evan was exactly the kind of guy you'd expect. Expensive gym membership, personal trainer sessions, and the kind of aggressive workout routine that screamed midlife crisis. The photos on his Instagram confirmed it. Shirtless gym selfies, protein powder endorsements, and motivational quotes about crushing your goals. At 41, he was fighting time with supplements and determination. I'd spent the day researching him thoroughly. Evan Michael Dorsey, senior marketing associate at Meridian, divorced 3 years ago, no kids, lived in a downtown condo that cost more than most people's annual salary. His ex-wife had taken him for half his assets, according to public divorce records. Apparently, he hadn't learned his lesson about married women. At 7:45, he emerged from the gym bag slung over his shoulder, hair still damp from the shower. He looked exactly like his photos, tall, artificially tanned, with the kind of confident stride that suggested he'd never faced real consequences for his actions. That was about to change. I waited until he was halfway to his car before getting out of mine. The parking lot was well lit but not crowded, perfect for what I had planned. Evan Dorsey? He turned, and I saw recognition flash across his face. He'd probably seen photos of me on Lyora's social media. Or maybe she'd pointed me out at some company event I'd forgotten about. Mr. Marin, his voice was carefully neutral. I wasn't expecting to see you here. I'm sure you weren't. Nice car. He glanced at his BMW, probably wondering where this was going. Thanks. Must be expensive to maintain. All those premium parts, specialized service requirements. I guess. I walked closer, noting how he shifted his weight, preparing for potential confrontation. His gym routine had given him confidence, but I doubted he'd ever been in an actual fight. I've been thinking about our phone conversation yesterday, I said. About keeping things quiet, working something out. Hope flickered in his eyes. Yeah? And I realized you were right. This doesn't have to get ugly. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of his dating app profile, which Sylvie had helpfully provided after doing her own research. Interesting profile, Evan. Looking for adventure with sophisticated women. Discretion guaranteed. Age is just a number. Really paints a picture of your character. His face went pale. Where did you get that? The internet is a wonderful thing. So many ways to connect with people, share information, build communities around common interests. I swiped to the next screenshot. His message history with several married women, including my wife. You have a type, don't you? Married, successful, looking for excitement their husbands can't provide. It's almost like a business model. You can't share those. They're private messages. Are they? Because according to the terms of service you agreed to, the app can share user data under certain circumstances, legal proceedings, for instance. I put my phone away and stepped closer. He was taller than me, probably stronger thanks to his gym routine, but he was backing away. Here's what's going to happen, Evan. You're going to stay away from my wife. You're going to find a new job, and you're going to think very carefully about your future choices. And if I don't, I smiled, then everyone in your professional and social circle gets to see just what kind of man you really are. He tried to regain some composure. You're threatening me. I'm educating you. There's a difference. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small paper bag. His eyes widened, probably expecting a weapon or some other dramatic escalation. Instead, I pulled out a handful of raw shrimp I'd bought from the grocery store on my way over. What the hell's that? Insurance, I said, walking to his car. The BMW's windows were slightly cracked, a common mistake people make when they want fresh air but don't want to leave windows fully open. It created just enough space for someone with the right tools and motivation. I'd brought a slim metal ruler, the kind teachers use, which slid easily through the window gap. A few minutes of careful maneuvering, and I had access to his car's interior. Stop! What are you doing? Teaching you about consequences. I stuffed the shrimp into his air conditioning vents, working quickly and efficiently. Raw seafood in a closed car, especially with Minnesota's unpredictable weather, would create an unforgettable olfactory experience within 24 hours. You're vandalizing my car. I'm conducting a science experiment. Did you know that decomposing organic matter can produce hydrogen sulfide? It's the same compound that gives rotten eggs their distinctive smell, but seafood creates a particularly persistent version. He lunged toward me, probably planning to physically stop me, but I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him past me. Gym muscles were impressive, but they were no substitute for actual coordination under pressure. I wouldn't do that if I were you, I said calmly, continuing my work. The assault charges would really complicate your employment situation. The last of the shrimp went into the vents behind his dashboard. Even if he found some of them, he'd never get them all. His car was going to smell like a fish market dumpster for weeks. There, I said, stepping back to admire my work. All done. You're insane. I'm thorough. There's a difference. I pulled out my phone again and took a photo of him standing next to his car, his face flushed with anger and humiliation. Smile, Evan. This one's going in my insurance file. Insurance file? Documentation, in case you decide to escalate this situation or continue pursuing married women. I want a record of our conversation and your reaction to reasonable consequences. He was shaking now, either from rage or fear. I could call the police. You could. And then you'd have to explain why you're filing a complaint against the husband of the woman you've been having an affair with. I'm sure that would go well for your career. I started walking back to my car, then paused and turned around. Oh, and Evan? You might want to check your social media privacy settings. Amazing how much personal information people share without thinking about who might be watching. I drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot next to his contaminated BMW. In my rearview mirror, I could see him frantically trying to reach into his air vents, probably hoping to undo the damage. He was going to be disappointed. The drive home gave me time to think about what I'd just done. The rational part of my brain recognized that I'd crossed a line from passive documentation to active revenge. But the emotional part, the part that had been humiliated and betrayed, felt satisfied in a way I hadn't experienced in months. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. This isn't over. I assumed it was from Evan, probably sent after he'd realized the full extent of his problem. I typed back, "You're right. It's just beginning." Then I blocked the number and drove home to plan phase 2. Because Evan Dorsey was just the appetizer. The main course was still coming. By Wednesday morning, the neighborhood was buzzing with gossip. I discovered this when Jean Patterson, our unofficial neighborhood watch coordinator, knocked on my door at 7 a.m. with a concerned expression and a thermos of coffee. Jean was 63, retired from the Postal Service, and had made monitoring local drama his full-time hobby. He knew everyone's business, kept track of suspicious vehicles, and maintained a network of information that would have impressed intelligence agencies. "Morning, Kian. Heard you had some excitement Monday night." I invited him in, curious about what version of events was circulating. Tara Voss was telling people at the coffee shop that someone tried to hack into your house. Said there were police reports and everything. Interesting interpretation, I said, pouring myself coffee. What else is she saying? That you've gone off the deep end, changed all your locks, installed new security cameras, threatened to have people arrested for visiting their friends? I had to admire Tara's spin control. She was reframing their breaking and entering attempt as a social call gone wrong. Jean, you've lived in this neighborhood for 15 years. Have you ever known me to go off the deep end about anything? He studied me over his coffee mug. Can't say that I have. You're usually the guy who fixes everyone's internet problems and helps jumpstart cars in winter. Exactly. So maybe there's more to this story than Tara's telling people. I showed him the security footage from Monday night. Tara with her laptop and cables attempting to hack my lock while Leora directed the operation. Gene's eyebrows rose as he watched. Well, that's a different story entirely, he said. That's not a social call. That's breaking and entering. It gets better. I explained about the affair, the hotel receipts, the company credit card fraud. Gene listened with the fascination of someone who'd stumbled onto the neighborhood scandal of the decade. So Tara was helping your wife cheat on you. And when you found out, they tried to hack into your house to, what? Destroy evidence? That's my theory. And now Tara's telling everyone you're the problem. Damage control. If she can convince people I'm unstable, it takes attention away from what she and Leora actually did. Gene finished his coffee and stood up. Well, I appreciate you setting the record straight. I'll make sure the right version gets around. After he left, I realized I just activated the neighborhood's most effective information distribution network. By noon, everyone within a 6-block radius would know the real story. But Leora wasn't done fighting. I discovered her next move when I tried to access our joint bank account and found it frozen. A quick phone call to the bank revealed that she'd filed a fraud complaint, claiming I was making unauthorized transactions and had potentially compromised her financial security. Clever. It would take days to sort out, during which time neither of us could access the funds. But it also meant she couldn't use our money to fund her legal counterattack. Her second move was more creative. I found out about it when my boss, Mr. Holbrook, called me into his office Wednesday afternoon. Kian, I got a strange phone call this morning. Someone claiming to be your wife, asking about your work schedule, and whether you'd been acting erratically lately. Holbrook was in his 50s, a former military guy who'd transitioned into corporate IT management. He was gruff but fair, and he'd always supported my work. What did you tell her? I told her that personnel matters are confidential and that if she had concerns about your welfare, she should contact you directly. But I wanted to check, is everything okay at home? I gave him the abbreviated version. Marriage falling apart, wife having an affair, divorce proceedings starting. He listened without judgment, occasionally nodding. Sorry to hear that, son. Divorce is tough. You need any time off to handle legal stuff? I might need a few hours here and there for meetings with lawyers. Not a problem, just keep me posted. He paused. And Kian, whatever's going on at home, don't let it affect your work. I've got your back, but I need you focused when you're here. Understood. But as I walked back to my desk, I realized that Leora was trying to undermine my employment. If she could convince my boss I was unstable or unreliable, it might affect the divorce settlement or at least create additional stress in my life. Two could play that game. I called Meridian Marketing and asked to speak with HR about following up on the complaint I'd filed Monday. The conversation was brief but informative. Mr. Marin, thank you for calling. I wanted to update you on our investigation. We've found evidence supporting your allegations regarding misuse of company resources. Both employees involved have been suspended pending final review. Both employees? Ms. Marin and Mr. Dorsey, the pattern of charges you documented, combined with email evidence we discovered during our review, clearly violates company policy. So Tara's damage control efforts hadn't extended to protecting Evan. Interesting. What happens next? That's an internal matter, but I can tell you that misuse of company resources at this level typically results in termination. After hanging up, I felt a moment of genuine sympathy for Leora. She was about to lose the job she'd worked years to build, all for a relationship that was probably over anyway. But the sympathy faded when I remembered the hotel receipts, the lies, the 7 months of deception. My phone rang. Paul. Hey, bro. Got some interesting news about your friend Evan. He's not my friend. Right. Anyway, remember how I mentioned I had contacts at his gym? Well, apparently he's been telling people there that he's being stalked by some crazy husband who's threatening him and vandalizing his car. His car does smell pretty bad right now. Yeah, about that. Shrimp was creative, but you might want to be more careful. He's talking about filing police reports. Let him. I didn't break any laws. Maybe not, but harassment charges can be subjective. Just watch your back, okay? After Paul hung up, I realized the situation was escalating beyond simple revenge. Leora and Evan were both fighting back, trying to paint me as the aggressor. If I wasn't careful, I could end up being the one facing legal consequences. Time to get more strategic. I spent the evening researching Minnesota divorce law and harassment statutes. Everything I'd done so far was legal, if aggressive. Changing my locks was my right as a homeowner. Sharing factual information about my wife's affair was protected speech. Even the shrimp incident was technically just property damage worth less than $50, a misdemeanor at worst. But I needed to be smarter about what came next. Thursday morning brought a new development, a letter from Leora's attorney. The law firm was expensive, the kind of place that charged $500 an hour and had marble in the lobby. The letter was professionally written and thoroughly intimidating, demanding that I cease all harassment and intimidation of their client and her associates. It specifically mentioned the security footage I'd shared with Jean, the documentation I'd provided to Meridian Marketing, and other actions designed to damage Ms. Selrick's reputation and livelihood. Ms. Selrick. She was already using her maiden name. The letter concluded with the demand that I preserve all electronic communications and financial records for discovery proceedings, and a warning that any further retaliatory actions would result in immediate legal action. I read it twice, then called my own attorney, a recommendation from Paul, who specialized in divorce cases. Jennifer Walsh was nothing like Leora's high-priced intimidation specialist. She worked out of a modest office, charged reasonable rates, and had a reputation for practical advice over dramatic gestures. "They're trying to scare you," she said after reviewing the letter. "It's a standard intimidation tactic. They're hoping you'll back down and make their client's life easier." Should I be worried? About what you've done so far? No. You documented evidence of adultery and financial misconduct, then shared that information with appropriate parties. That's not harassment. That's protecting your interests. What about going forward? Be smart. Don't do anything that could be construed as threatening or intimidating. Document everything, but don't actively interfere with her life or employment. What if she keeps trying to undermine me? Then we document that too, and use it in the divorce proceedings. The spouse who behaves reasonably usually comes out better in the settlement. I left her office feeling more confident, but also more constrained. The legal system was forcing me to take the high road, even while Leora was playing dirty. But that didn't mean I was defenseless. That evening, I activated the final phase of my security upgrades. New cameras with better night vision, motion sensors that could distinguish between humans and animals, and a comprehensive monitoring system that would document any future attempts at harassment or intimidation. If Leora wanted to escalate this conflict, I'd be ready. And if she thought her expensive lawyer could intimidate me into backing down, she was about to learn that some people fight harder when cornered. The storm was coming, and I intended to be the one left standing when it passed. Friday night arrived with the kind of weather that makes meteorologists excited and everyone else nervous. The National Weather Service had issued severe thunderstorm warnings, predicting high winds, heavy rain, and possible hail. I watched the radar on my phone tracking the massive storm system moving across Minnesota like a green and red bruise on the sky. Perfect timing for what I suspected would be the final confrontation. I'd spent the day making preparations. The house was secured, the security system was armed, and I'd made sure all the documentation was safely backed up to multiple locations. If Leora wanted to make one last desperate play, I'd be ready. The first drops of rain started falling around 8 p.m., fat droplets that splattered against my windows like liquid bullets. I was in my office monitoring the security feeds when I saw the first car pull into my driveway. Leora's sedan, followed closely by a vehicle I didn't recognize, a black SUV with tinted windows. As I watched, 3 people got out. Leora, Evan, and someone I assumed was either a friend or possibly even a hired intimidator. Interesting, I muttered, activating the recording function on all cameras. They huddled under the porch light, probably planning their approach. The rain was getting heavier, turning the evening into a noir film with natural lighting effects. My phone buzzed with a text from Leora. We need to talk, face to face. This ends tonight. I typed back, "You're welcome to talk. I'm listening. Open the door." No. What they didn't know was that I'd spent the afternoon making some modifications to my smart home system. The sprinkler system was now connected to motion sensors. The outdoor lighting could be controlled remotely, and I'd installed speakers that could project sound in different directions, creating some interesting acoustic effects. I activated the intercom system. "Good evening, everyone. Lovely night for a visit." Leora stepped closer to the door. "Kian, this is ridiculous. We're adults. We can work this out. I'm comfortable working it out like this. Besides, you brought friends. I'd hate to interrupt your planning session." Evan moved into camera range, and I could see he was agitated, probably still dealing with the lingering effects of his car's new fragrance. "You think you're so smart," he called out, "hiding behind your cameras and your locks like some kind of coward." "I think I'm being prudent. You've already demonstrated a willingness to engage in illegal activities. Why would I give you access to my home?" The third person, a large man in his 30s, stepped forward. "Maybe you should listen to what they have to say." "And you are?" "Someone who thinks the situation has gotten out of hand." I activated the motion sensor sprinklers. Water erupted from multiple directions, soaking all three visitors. They scrambled for cover under the porch overhang, cursing and shouting. "Oops," I said through the intercom. "System malfunction. These smart homes can be so unpredictable." "Turn it off," Leora screamed. "I'm trying, but the system seems to be stuck in diagnostic mode. Might take a few minutes to reset." The truth was, I had complete control over every system in the house. The sprinklers, the lights, the audio system, even the wireless network that their phones were probably trying to connect to. While they huddled together, dripping and angry, I activated phase 2 of my preparations. The outdoor speakers came online, projecting sound from different locations around the property. To anyone standing on my porch, it would seem like voices were coming from the bushes, the garage, even the street. "Kian?" The voice seemed to come from behind them. "What's going on over there?" It was a recording I'd made earlier, using voice modulation software to disguise my own voice as Gene Patterson. They spun around, looking for the source of the sound. "Gene?" Leora called out. "Gene, is that you?" "Looks like you folks are having some trouble," came another voice, this one seeming to originate from the garage. "Should I call the police?" "No," Evan shouted. "We're just trying to talk to Kian." "In the middle of a thunderstorm?" The voice seemed skeptical. "That seems unusual." I was enjoying this more than I probably should have. But after months of being lied to, manipulated, and betrayed, there was something deeply satisfying about watching them panic. The real storm was intensifying. Lightning flickered in the distance, and the rain was coming down harder. My visitors were soaked, confused, and probably beginning to realize they'd made a tactical error. But Leora wasn't ready to give up. "Kian, I know you can hear me. I have something you need to know." I activated the intercom. "I'm listening." "I'm pregnant." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at the security monitor, watching her face in the harsh porch light, looking for signs that she was lying. But even Leora wouldn't lie about something like that. Would she? "Congratulations," I said finally. "I assume Evan is the father?" Silence. "Actually," she said, "I'm not sure." Now I understood why she'd brought backup. This wasn't just about ending our marriage. It was about establishing paternity, financial responsibility, and probably setting up some kind of ongoing relationship that would complicate my life for the next 18 years. "Interesting timing for this revelation," I said. "Right after you've been suspended from work. Right after your affair became public knowledge. Right after you realized you might lose everything in the divorce. The timing doesn't change the facts." "No, but it does raise questions about your motivations." I pulled out my phone and started a new recording. If she was going to make claims about pregnancy and paternity, I wanted everything documented. "Here's what's going to happen," I said through the intercom. "You're going to get off my property. You're going to communicate with me through lawyers from now on. And if you're really pregnant, we'll handle that through proper legal channels, including paternity testing. You can't just shut me out. I can and I am. You made your choice when you decided to cheat on me. Now you get to live with the consequences." The large man who'd come with them stepped forward again. "Maybe you should be more reasonable about this. And maybe you should mind your own business. This is a private property, and you're trespassing. I activated the exterior lighting system, flooding the yard with bright white light. Simultaneously, I triggered the home security alarm. Not the silent one that contacted the monitoring company, but the loud, obnoxious siren that would wake up the entire neighborhood. The effect was immediate and dramatic. All three visitors covered their ears and started backing away from the house. The combination of flashing lights, blaring sirens, and continuing rain created a sensory overload that made conversation impossible. But I wasn't done yet. I activated the final phase of my preparations, a live stream to the neighborhood social media group that Jean had helped me set up earlier in the week. Anyone in the area who was following the ongoing drama would now have front row seats to the conclusion. The viewer count started climbing immediately. Apparently, people were very interested in seeing how this story ended. Through the security cameras, I could see neighbors coming out of their houses, drawn by the noise and lights. Jean appeared from across the street, wearing a rain jacket and carrying a flashlight. Other residents gathered on their porches, watching the spectacle unfold. Leora realized what was happening when she saw the growing audience. Her face went pale as she understood that her private confrontation had become a public performance. "Turn it off!" she screamed, but her voice was barely audible over the alarm. Instead, I activated the intercom one final time, projecting my voice clearly over the chaos. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. What you're witnessing is the conclusion of a 7-month deception. My wife Leora has been having an affair with her coworker, Evan Dorsey. They used company resources to fund their relationship, lied to family and friends, and when confronted with evidence of their behavior, attempted to break into my home and intimidate me into silence." I paused, letting that sink in. Tonight, they came here with threats and demands, including a conveniently timed pregnancy announcement designed to complicate divorce proceedings. But I want everyone to understand something. Actions have consequences. Lies have consequences. And betrayal has consequences. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the scene like a photographer's flash. The three figures on my porch looked like actors in a disaster movie, soaked, desperate, and trapped by circumstances of their own making. "This is harassment!" Leora shouted, but her words were lost in the storm and the continuing alarm. "This is justice," I replied, "and it's being documented for posterity." Evan made a move toward the door, probably planning some kind of physical confrontation, but Jean and 2 other neighbors intercepted him. "I don't think that's a good idea, son," Jean said, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden lull between thunder crashes. "There's about 50 people watching this online, and assaulting someone on their own property would be a career-ending mistake." The fight went out of Evan visibly. He looked around at the gathered neighbors, the recording cameras, the live stream audience, and seemed to realize that any escalation would only make things worse for him. The third man, whoever he was, had already started walking back toward the SUV. Apparently, he'd decided this wasn't worth whatever Leora had paid him. "It's over," I said, my voice carrying across the yard through the exterior speakers. "Go home, find new jobs, make better choices, but don't come back here." I turned off the alarm, and the sudden silence was almost as dramatic as the noise had been. The only sounds were the rain, the distant thunder, and the murmur of neighbors discussing what they'd just witnessed. Leora stood under my porch light for a long moment, water dripping from her hair, her expensive clothes ruined, her dignity in tatters. She looked up at the camera she knew I was watching through. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "Yes," I replied, "it is." She turned and walked to her car, Evan following behind her like a defeated dog. They drove away without another word, leaving me alone with the storm, the neighbors, and the satisfaction of a job well done. I turned off the exterior lights and the live stream, then sat back in my chair and watched the rain wash away the evidence of the evening's confrontation. My phone was buzzing with messages, congratulations, support, offers of help. The neighborhood had chosen sides, and I'd won. Outside, the storm was reaching its peak. Lightning split the sky, thunder shook the house, and rain hammered against every surface. But inside, I felt calmer than I had in months. The war was over. I'd won. And tomorrow, I'd start building whatever came next. But that's a story for another day. Tonight, I was content to sit in my secure house, surrounded by the technology that had helped me reclaim my life, and listened to the storm wash away the past. Justice, it turned out, sounded a lot like rain on the roof and thunder in the distance, and it felt better than I'd ever imagined.